Patrick Riggins Show. Call in now, 865-243-TALK. That's 243-8255. And now your host, Patrick Riggins.
Welcome to the Patrick Riggins Show, the show that has its critics, but in the end is hard to criticize because we, meaning me, the host, and you, the listeners, are correct. We are the ones on the side of freedom and liberty, and that is always the side that is on target. While these other shows are out there wildly shooting into the air, hoping to hit something, we are always landing dead center of the bullseye on the issues. Helping to spread our logic and reasoning worldwide is the radio station here in East Tennessee that rules the roost. WNOX FM, found at the frequency of 100.3 megahertz, or megacycles if you're from the old school. If you would prefer to get your information via the digital highway, you can also tune into this broadcast at the station's website. The address for that being www.wnoxfm.com. There you can watch and listen to this show live from the exclusive webcam. On it, you can view the plush and air-conditioned studios of WNOX, located on historic Kingston Pike in Knoxville, Tennessee. Standing here to my left, if you're watching on WNOXFM.com, is the show producer, Tori, who is currently ogling the Olympics.
I am watching the female beach volleyball, and I have to say, I am very happy and very angry at the same time.
Yes, you're not happy with the American uniform.
With the uniforms, no.
But the
Argentina's uniform,
Argentina,
I like those.
That is political correctness run amok.
Oh, I know, and I don't even want to get into it like that. But yeah, it's everywhere here.
You
don't want to make everybody else mad.
Yeah, I can't do that. Have to think of everybody else.
Well,
and, the other countries don't really bother with that.
But the ladies are wearing long sleeves. If you're not watching, long sleeves with bikini bottoms.
Yeah.
So I guess the legs are okay, but not arms.
Yeah. And they got turtlenecks too, don't they?
Basically, I mean, it's basic. Yeah, and the Argentinas are out there. Looks like they're wearing thongs.
Just put it this way. Tori's
Argentina don't care to make the rest of our world mad.
I figured what'll be going on is you'll be pushing wrong buttons all day today.
Oh yeah, yeah. What are we talking about?
Yeah, exactly.
we're winning, so
yeah. The answer to every question today will be Argentina.
Or as I say, wait till Brazil plays.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Thank you to everyone for tuning in again this week. Like every week, I have a jam-packed show, probably easily 3 hours worth of material, but I'll try and get to as much as I can. That leads me to a quick broadcast issue I want to address before we get started this afternoon. I frequently get emails about this, and also whenever I run into someone who listens to the show, it most certainly comes up then as well. And the issue is one of taking callers on the show. I try to get to as many callers as I can, but unfortunately, I have so much when I come into the studio. If you watch on the webcam, you see me come in with a laptop and a huge stack of papers. When I come in the studio, I have a hard time trying to get to everything that I bring in here in the 40-some-odd minutes I have available. Yes, it is an hour show, but by the time you factor in commercial breaks and news and weather at the beginning of the end, I'm left about 43 minutes or so, something like that. So since about everybody listening knows how big a job I have just trying to talk about all this stuff the government is working to try to get away with nowadays, I know you understand why we take so few calls. But know this for absolute certain. This show would not be as successful as it is becoming without you, the listeners, and everyone you turn on to about this show. It's like the old saying, though, if a tree fell in the forest and no one was around to hear it, did it make a noise? In that same vein, it doesn't matter how intelligent an argument I make for less government involvement in your daily life. If no one is listening, well, it really doesn't matter. Fortunately, a lot of people are listening, with more and more tuning in for the first time each week. I receive a bunch of email from people who tell me they are so glad to actually hear someone on the air speaking to them, because on this show we are consistent and use logic and reason to defend the ideas of freedom and liberty. And that is what people want. They don't want a host that just yells and screams but doesn't really say anything, or a host that tells them they want less government and then turns around and falls into lockstep with that same government when it is trampling on our rights and liberties. Just this time, they agree with what it's doing because it's okay then if they agree with it. If you peel away that veneer of a lot of these so-called conservative hosts hide behind, you'll see that they are government people just like the liberal host. They want government doing their bidding, which is still intrusive, but to them it's not, because government is doing it in a way they want. That is why it's so important to listen to this show and develop that part of your brain which questions all of this slop coming over the airwaves from commentators, politicians, bureaucrats. When you start listening with a critical ear, you'll start seeing how so much of what is going on in the country today saps away your freedom little by little. The good thing is you will stop accepting what you're being told and start thinking for yourself. That, my friends, is the key to turning this country around. The key that unlocks the door to the vault where the government has hidden away our confiscated freedoms and liberties. Even those freedoms and liberties which we have willingly given up, or others have given up without our consent. Now, the fight won't be easy, nor quick. That's because taking away your freedoms only takes a president's signature on a piece of legislation. Although increasingly it is the dictate from some unknown bureaucrat in a faceless government agency. When it comes to restoring the rights taken away, progress is extremely slow and painful. And in America, it is supposed to be the opposite. Taking away rights should never be easy. And you don't have to worry about how much pain it takes to acquire them, because by being born human and in this country, they are yours supposedly automatically. So we're up on the first break of the show already. It's a very short hour, very quick hour. When we return, we'll talk about Obama's speech that has been all over the news. But I have a decidedly different take on that, which is what you expect on this show. And much, much more coming up. Join me after this break in about 2 minutes.
Fighting for freedom, liberty, and the restoration of the Constitution. The Patrick Riggins Show. Call in now at 865-243-8255. That's 243-TALK. And now your host, Patrick Riggins.
Welcome back to the Patrick Riggins Show. This is Patrick Riggins here with you this afternoon. And we'll just jump right into everything. We've got quite a bit to get to here. Last week, President Obama gave a speech in Roanoke, Virginia that has been played over and over since then, being used by both conservatives and liberals to try and make points with their constituents. I know most people have heard this by now, but in case you have not, here is a short clip of it.
If you've been successful, you didn't get there on your own. You didn't get there on your own. I'm always struck by people who think, well, it must be because I was just so smart. There are a lot of smart people out there. It must be because I worked harder than everybody else. Let me tell you something. There are a whole bunch of hard-working people out there. If you were successful, somebody along the line gave you some help. There was a great teacher somewhere in your life. Somebody helped to create this unbelievable American system that we have that allowed you to thrive. Somebody invested in roads and bridges. If you got a business, you didn't build that. Somebody else made that happen.
And there it was. I'm sure you guys have heard that over and over already. This clip has been sliced and diced and taken out of context so many times it's almost comical. Over and over, conservative commentators have taken what the president said to mean he doesn't think the people who have built successful businesses did it themselves. Clearly, this is not what he meant. and to try and pass it off as that as an insult to anyone who is the least bit rational in their thinking. But over the past 2 weeks, both radio and television hosts have been mischaracterizing what he was saying, and obviously thinking their audience is either too dim-witted or robotic in their thinking to realize it. I don't know if that speaks more to the lack of respect for these people that these people have for their audiences, or if the previous description of their audience is correct. Either way, clearly the president is talking about the roads and bridges being built by someone else and making it possible for businesses to thrive. Being a big government type of person, this opinion should not surprise anyone. The outrage should not be so much about him having this attitude, but that Congress continues to vote in such a way as to allow this type of sentiment to prevail in Washington. I've mentioned it on this show before, but in case you missed it, here is a clip.
We were here first. The government came second. We are not born with government, but we are born with our rights, our freedoms, and our liberties.
I repeat this over and over on this show, and I refuse to stop until every American understands this simple yet essential concept. Unfortunately, the president and people like him have a bigger megaphone than I do. But in the end, the truth will always win out. Sometimes it just takes a little bit more patience and time. As far as the president is concerned, government is the sole reason why people are successful in this country. If that is so, how did people survive in the early West where there was not any government? When mountain men, pioneers, cowboys first traveled out west into Indian country, there was no American government out there making trails, clearing out the forest for a home and farm. Before those areas were even accepted as states, how did they get along without the federal government? How did they become successful without government programs to help them along, to provide housing and food? The answer is they were successful because they were free. They had the freedom to make their own way, to provide for themselves without having the government take almost half their earnings in taxes, sometimes more than that over this country's history. This all harkens back to what I was discussing a few weeks ago concerning the American dream. And here's a clip from that show.
The American dream is defined by Obama as being a good and loyal citizen, dutifully going to work, paying your taxes, and living according to how the government wants you to live. And only then are you living the American dream. You see, it's much easier to change the definition of something than to change people. By changing the definition of the American dream, people will begin to work towards that instead of that pesky old definition we used to have of everyone having freedom and liberty and being created equal. If Obama and his little band of like-minded socialists can redefine the American dream so that the results and rewards are what define it, then only the fact that you have them will matter, not how you got them. If the government is the one providing that outcome, then people will start to see it as integral to achieving this new definition of the American dream. In doing so, the government will be just one step closer to defeating these ideas of freedom and liberty.
The American dream is and always will be freedom, no matter what Washington has to say about it. Don't think for a minute, though, that a whole lot of Republicans don't buy into what the president is saying. Sure, they'll oppose it just because it's coming from the other side of the aisle, but they are not in any hurry to bring us back from all the socialism being imposed on this country. Just look at their voting records. They are all guilty of selling out their principles in order to make, quote, progress, unquote, on their particular agenda. These politicians will tell you these things have to be done in order to get legislation passed. To that, I say they are demonstrating they have no moral principles. I have used this example before, but how do you negotiate with the devil? The answer is you cannot and should not. Bargaining away what you stand for gains you nothing. Even if you get your piece of legislation passed, you have still given away a fellow citizen's rights and freedoms, which is what 99% of the bills being passed in Congress do to one degree or another. In voting for something that is against your principles and or takes away liberty and freedom from another, and hopefully those are one and the same, you are committing a treasonous act against the people of this country. Article 6 of the Constitution states that it is the supreme law of the land. It also states, and I'll abbreviate for time's sake, the senators and representatives, all executive and judicial officers, shall be bound by oath or affirmation to support this Constitution. The current oath these representatives take to get into office is the following. I do solemnly swear or affirm that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic, that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same, that I take this obligation freely without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion, and that I will well and faithfully discharge the duties of the office on which I am about to enter, so help me God. So when your representative votes for something that is clearly contrary to the Constitution, they are acting in a treasonous fashion and are undermining our country. When someone is running for office states they're going to do something contrary to the Constitution, they are already breaking the part of the oath they might be taking, which states, I take this obligation freely without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion. What you need to do is call them out on this. Ask them how they can promise to do something which violates the Constitution before they even get into office. And demand from the people already in office how they can violate the Constitution having taken that oath. This is another reason why I don't have representatives on my show, because they are not going to like the questions I have to ask them. And more than likely, I'm not going to accept or even want to hear their lame excuses about why they voted on something that takes away freedom and liberty. Oh, they'll say they're just reauthorizing something that has already passed by a previous Congress. That is not an excuse. Unless you are on record with having voted against these laws and are actively working to undo all this governmental control, then you are a part of the problem, my friend. You don't deserve the support of any freedom-minded American, and in fact should be run out of town for voting the way you do. Either side, too, not just Republican or Democrat, because freedom doesn't care what you call yourself, what label you have, who supports you, or who you're running against. All we care about is whether or not we're losing freedom or gaining it back. Any other discussion is a waste of time. If you are working towards more freedom, then you are working towards having government obey the Constitution and upholding your oath. If you aren't, then you are violating your oath and a traitor to this country. We don't need a war on terror. The terrorists have only attacked us a few times throughout our country's history. What we need is a war on these freedom-robbing people in government. They are constantly attacking our government and what it stands for. They are the domestic enemies that are mentioned in the oath I just read. So we'll jump to, we're coming up on the end of the half hour here already. Boy, I get going on something and the break comes right up. So
sorry I didn't tell you. Volleyball.
Yeah, Tori is
beach volleyball.
Yeah, he is transfixed.
We're winning 15-11 though.
All right, we're up on the end of the half hour here. We'll take a quick break. When we come back, we'll get to a couple other things. We've got a couple of calls holding. We'll try to get to them and more here on the Patrick Riggins Show. Stay with us we'll be back in a couple of minutes.
Fighting for freedom, liberty, and the restoration of the Constitution. The Patrick Riggins Show. Call in now at 865-243-8255. That's 243-TALK. And now your host, Patrick Riggins.
This is Patrick Riggins with the Patrick Riggins Show. Back for the last segment of an extremely short hour. It's like a time warp. It goes by so quickly. Yeah, warp again. We'll do the Rocky Horror Picture Show thing again. Real quickly, this last segment, I want to talk about something that came out here just this week, and I was pretty impressed with it. The actor and rapper Ice-T appeared on Britain's Channel 4 recently and had a few words to say about gun control. He was promoting his directorial debut of the documentary film called Something from Nothing, The Art of Rap. This chronicles the rap music's beginnings. Now, during the interview, the news of the Colorado shooting was coming in. So the interviewer asked him about gun control and what his thoughts are on owning guns. And here was his reply.
Well, I'd give up my gun when everybody else does.
There you go. And when the interviewer expresses a little bit of surprise at that remark, he followed up with this.
If there were guns here, would you want to be the only person without one?
Ice-T was referring to the fact that gun regulations are pretty stiff in Britain for law-abiding people. However, if Ice-T thinks criminals cannot get guns in that country, he is a little mistaken. He does demonstrate an unusual knowledge for someone in show business to know why the founders created the Second Amendment.
You know, the right to bear arms is because that's the last form of defense against tyranny, not to hunt. It's to protect yourself from the police.
Exactly. Yeah, Tori's clapping. I don't know how you could say that any better. Guns are the last form of protection. And he correctly states you need them to protect you from the police. Because when guns are no longer allowed, it is the police who will be knocking on your door to confiscate them. Not all police, though, will obey that order. In fact, I know quite a few who would refuse and quit their jobs in law enforcement before doing that. But the fact of the matter is, there will always be those who will gladly pin that badge on and follow such an order. So you better have something to protect yourself when that day arrives. The interviewer then asked if having guns in America makes it easier for people to kill one another. Again, Ice-T answers that question correctly.
Nah, not really. You know what I'm saying? If somebody wants to kill people, you know, they don't need a gun to do it. You can strap explosives on your body. They do that all the time.
Again, a very good answer. Just look at the recent bomber in Bulgaria. Reminds me of a clip from this show just last week.
Government cannot protect you. You have to do that yourself. The only thing government can do is write up the report about what happened after the incident has already occurred.
What I stress to you is always be vigilant about your surroundings and what is going on. You don't have to be on high alert. Just make it hard for someone to take advantage of you. A good way is to notice if someone is taking an interest in what you're doing. Are they paying a little too much attention to you? Are you seeing them over and over in a store? Are they getting to the checkout line about the time you are? You don't have to be paranoid about everybody. Just aware of them. Most people who are attacked in some way or another become victims because they fail to notice some warning signs something was about to happen. There is an old saying taught to many police recruits, which states, if you look like food, you will be eaten. The key is to not look like food. If you notice someone taking an interest in your activities, let them go out the door first. If they're behind you in the checkout line, get out of line and go down the aisle acting like you forgot to get something. It only takes a couple of minutes, but it can throw off the timing of someone looking to steal your purse or wallet. Mean people aren't just looking to harm you specifically. If you are in a public place, look around and notice what others are doing. Are they dressed appropriately for the weather? Are they nervous or sweating abnormally? Being aware of your surroundings becomes second nature when you practice it. It gets to the point where you don't even know you're watching others until you see something out of the ordinary. And then you can decide if these people are up to something or not. Again, I'm not talking about being paranoid and afraid of everyone around you. I'm only saying to just be aware. But even then, You may not escape everything, but at least you will be one up on those people who are blindly stumbling around and end up putting themselves in harm's way. I know, for instance, Tori immediately noticed the volleyball players today.
Yes, and what they were wearing.
That didn't get by you at all.
And what they were wearing. The long sleeves. Yes.
So wasn't it interesting, though, that Ice-T, with these statements he was making about the guns are to protect you from tyranny and the police.
There's no better way of putting it.
And I think that was just amazing, being in show business, that he would say that. But I guess coming from NWA, which is
it's not shocking, let's say that.
Yeah,
That's,
for the people who don't know, that was the rap group he was in.
But he was right. If you want to kill somebody can take their car right now and drive down the Gay Street, sidewalk.
Yeah.
Or they want car control then.
Yeah. Well, and there was a story I heard on the news during the break. The guy that was having problems with his wife and shot his kids and shot himself. His wife didn't know. I think they were getting ready to be separated or something, and she stopped by the house, and there's a bunch of cops there. There's a lot of weird people in the world, a lot of crazy people, and that's just life.
Yeah.
That's just how it's going to be, and the best thing you can do is protect yourself. I don't want to tell you what to do on this show. I just want to put ideas out there, and you can decide what you want to do. But, go get a carry permit. You're allowed to in this state, and there's a lot of states that have reciprocity with this state. Just having that around. There was a story last week, I believe it was last week, there was a guy in a store that went crazy and started stabbing people, and an elderly man had a carry permit and had his gun on him, pulled the gun out, ordered the guy to drop the knife. Now, he could have just shot him, but he ordered him to drop the knife. He did, immediately seeing, hey, there's a guy with a gun here. Who knows how many people he saved. The guy had stabbed a couple of people already, but the guy with the gun stopped the problem. So
sounds like gun control to me.
Yeah, gun control is hitting what you shoot at.
He controlled it very nicely.
All right, this week we have flown through another hour of the Patrick Riggins Show. I'd like to thank everyone for listening and helping to make this show's audience grow larger and larger each week. Please continue to tell your friends and even the people who aren't your friends to listen each Sunday afternoon at 4 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, so we can maintain the high listener growth this show has come to exemplify. If you get a chance during the week, be sure and, call the station during business hours. Let them know you're enjoying the Patrick Riggins Show. Letting the management know how well a weekend-only show is doing always helps out. If you want more information about us, go to facebook.com/Patrick Riggins Show. That's RIGGINS Show. And hit that like button. You can also find us on Twitter at Patrick Riggins. And you can find these shows, including this one, probably by tonight, on youtube.com/Patrick Riggins Show. Again, that's PATRICKRIGGINS Show. Join me next Sunday afternoon when, once again, we'll talk about freedom, liberty, and the restoration of the Constitution. This is Patrick Riggins, and we will see you next Sunday. Have a great week.
Join us again next week for a solid dose of truth on the Patrick Riggins Show, every Sunday from 4 to 5 p.m. Be there.